Beneath the majestic peaks and sun-drenched vistas of Colorado, a stark reality unfolds in plain sight. It lives on the bustling streets of Denver, finds refuge in public parks, shelters under the cold steel of bridges, and hides in the quietest back alleys. Here, thousands of people are living without a place to call home. Homelessness. It's a single word, but it represents a universe of pain, a daily battle for survival, and a profound sense of loss. Colorado is celebrated as one of America's fastest-growing states, a beacon for opportunity and innovation. But as the skyline fills with cranes and new developments, a different story is being written on the ground. More and more of our neighbors are being pushed to the margins, priced out, and ultimately erased from the picture. Every single night, over 10,000 Coloradans face the darkness without the security of a permanent home. These aren't just figures on a spreadsheet. They are our children, our elders, our veterans. They are the day laborers who build our cities, and the people with steady jobs who, despite their best efforts, simply cannot afford the rent. This film is not about numbers on a page. It's a journey into the heart of the crisis. We're here to amplify the voices that have been silenced, to scrutinize the policies, search for genuine solutions, and dismantle the tired, false narratives that stigmatize those living on the edge. We will share intimate stories, examine the systems that are failing them, and ask the hard question: in a state blessed with such immense wealth and resources, why are so many people left without the fundamental human need for a home? This is the story of homelessness in Colorado, a story of devastating loss and defiant hope. For the last decade, Colorado has been a beacon of explosive growth. Cities like Denver, Boulder, and Colorado Springs are thriving hubs, pulling in new talent, tech giants, and a wave of creative energy. But this boom has cast a long, dark shadow. Housing prices that have spiraled out of control, gentrification that has fractured communities, and a social divide that grows wider by the day. Official reports from 2023 estimated that more than 10,000 people are experiencing homelessness in Colorado on any given night, a figure that continues its relentless climb. This isn't just a crisis confined to major urban centers. It's creeping into quiet mountain towns and once secure suburban neighborhoods. But to understand this crisis, you have to see that homelessness isn't one single story. It's the person sleeping in their car, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. It's the family in an emergency shelter, hoping for a miracle. It's the phenomenon of hidden homelessness, where individuals bounce between friends' couches, perpetually one step away from the street. And it's the countless families and children who remain invisible, uncounted by an official system that can't see them. The seeds of this crisis were sown in a complex mix of factors. The housing affordability gap is the most visible culprit. Over the past 10 years, average rents have skyrocketed by over 60%, while the minimum wage has barely budged. The math is brutal. There isn't a single county in Colorado where a person working a full-time minimum wage job can afford a basic one-bedroom apartment without sacrificing essentials like food or health care. Yet digging deeper reveals more. A critical shortage of mental health services, a justice system that too often criminalizes poverty, and an emergency shelter system stretched to its breaking point. All of this is compounded by a painful social stigma. And in Colorado, despite numerous initiatives, individuals are forced to navigate a maze of well-intentioned systems, social services, legal aid, health care, housing, that too often operate in silos, unable to communicate with one another. Homelessness in Colorado is not merely a social issue. It is a structural failure, a deep crack in a foundation that is failing to uphold a basic human right, a place to call home. Meet James. At 63, his face tells a story of a life lived. For over 20 years, he was an elementary school teacher in Denver, shaping young minds with a passion for math. But an early retirement forced by chronic health issues and a mountain of medical debts swallowed his savings, and then his home. Today, his world is a worn-out van, tucked away in the shadows of a 24-hour supermarket. "My day starts before the sun comes up," he tells us, his voice raspy. "I have to move the van before the morning patrol comes by. I'm always moving. There's no rest in this life." James's story is tragically common. A growing legion of seniors in Colorado is falling into homelessness, their retirements shattered by inadequate pensions, unexpected medical crises, or the loss of a lifelong partner. Then we meet Emma. She's 25. After aging out of the foster care system at 18, she was left to fend for herself and has been adrift ever since. Her nights are spent in crowded shelters, on park benches, and sometimes seeking warmth in the deserted hallways of a local college campus. Emma's entire world is confined to a heavy backpack which holds all her possessions, including a journal she fills with her thoughts each night. "The cold is hard," Emma admits, pulling her jacket tighter. "But the hardest part? It's the invisibility, watching people look right through you, like you're not even there." Under the rumbling Interstate 25 overpass, we find Luis and Marissa, a young couple whose love is a small shield against the world. They cradle their 10-month-old baby, a tiny life starting in the harshest of circumstances. Both work part-time jobs, Luis as a line cook, Marissa as a cashier. But their combined income isn't enough for even the most basic studio apartment. "We're not lazy. We work hard," Marissa says, her eyes pleading for understanding. "We just can't afford to live in the city we were born in, the city we love." Behind each of these faces is a universal truth. There is no single, simple reason for homelessness. It could be a sudden job loss, an escape from domestic violence, or the lingering ghosts of childhood trauma. But one thing is certain: nobody chooses this life. These are not caricatures. They are not lazy. They are not worthless. They are human beings, caught in the gaping holes of a system that was supposed to protect them. To be clear, the state of Colorado is not ignoring the problem. In recent years, a significant amount of funding has been allocated to tackle the crisis, fueling everything from emergency shelters to short-term rental assistance. One of the most prominent strategies is housing first. This approach flips the traditional model on its head by placing individuals directly into stable, permanent housing first, and then wrapping them with support services for mental health, addiction recovery, or job training. The philosophy is straightforward. It's nearly impossible to heal and rebuild your life when you're in survival mode on the streets. In theory, the logic is sound. Several cities across the state have pioneered innovative solutions like tiny home villages, which offer small, dignified living spaces with essential services for the chronically unhoused. These programs are showing signs of real success, but these policies are not without intense debate and opposition. In Denver, a deep friction exists between city officials and community advocates. At the heart of the debate is the city's controversial urban camping ban, which prohibits setting up tents or sleeping in public spaces. In practice, this policy gives authorities the power to conduct sweeps, dismantling encampments at a moment's notice. During these sweeps, tents vanish. Along with them go blankets, clothes, and sometimes irreplaceable documents like birth certificates and IDs. The city contends that these encampments are a public health and safety risk, but for those experiencing homelessness, these actions feel less like a solution and more like punishment, policing poverty while offering no real alternative. "We don't need to be scattered," an activist declared at a tense city council meeting. "We need a place to go." Another point of contention is the heavy reliance on law enforcement. Instead of a public health or social work response, many situations involving homelessness are treated as criminal matters. Sleeping in a park can lead to a costly fine. Pitching a tent on a sidewalk can lead to an arrest. This begs the question, is a police-led approach actually solving the problem? Or is it just deepening the trauma? On the other hand, the state government is making efforts to strengthen the social safety net. In 2023, it introduced an emergency rental assistance fund and new tax incentives to encourage the development of affordable housing. But the chasm between the overwhelming need and the available resources remains immense. There are simply too many people falling into crisis and far too few places for them to land safely. In the midst of this, a profound debate is unfolding about justice, the right to housing, and the fundamental duty of a government to ensure its people are not forced to live and die under the open sky. For some, it's a moral failing. For others, it's a line item on a budget. But for those on the streets, it is a daily struggle for life itself. The question is no longer, what is wrong with them? The question is, what is wrong with our system? And do we have the courage to fix it? But even in the face of this daunting crisis, sparks of innovation and hope are catching fire. Across Colorado, grassroots organizations and local communities are pioneering solutions built from the ground up, designed with compassion and informed by lived experience. One powerful example is Denver's Safe Outdoor Spaces. These are sanctioned, managed sites where people can legally and safely set up their tents. Outfitted with restrooms, clean water access, and 24/7 security, they provide a humane, orderly, and temporary haven off the streets. This isn't permanent housing, a dedicated site coordinator explains, but it's a vital bridge. It's a step away from chaos and towards stability. In the city of Aurora, street outreach teams composed of social workers are proactively visiting encampments. They focus on building trust and relationships, consistently offering pathways to counseling, recovery programs, and shelter beds. In Boulder, the nonprofit Bridge House has created an acclaimed Ready-to-Work program. It provides transitional housing combined with paid, practical work experience in city beautification and culinary arts. The results are undeniable. Over 70% of its graduates secure both mainstream employment and permanent housing within a year. We operate on a simple belief, the program's director states. Dignity begins with opportunity. Even in smaller communities from Durango to Grand Junction, citizens are mobilizing. They are building tiny home communities, proving that low-cost, dignified housing is not a utopian dream, but a tangible reality. The common thread weaving through every one of these successes? Collaboration. A powerful partnership between local government, nonprofits, dedicated volunteers, and, most critically, the voices of those who have experienced homelessness themselves. Because top-down solutions so often fail. But when the people most affected are given a seat at the table, the solutions that emerge are more humane, more effective, and built to last. This local innovation is proof that meaningful change isn't just possible. It's already happening. The real question is, are we willing to embrace it and scale it? And yet, local innovation can only go so far when confronted by monumental, systemic hurdles. The supply of truly affordable housing is critically, tragically low. The bureaucratic red tape to access support is so dense and confusing that many simply give up. Then there is the mental health care system, chronically underfunded and understaffed, unable to meet the crushing demand. Many of the most promising programs operate on fragile, short-term grants. When the funding cycle ends, the infrastructure and the trust it built often crumble. At the same time, climate change is adding another layer of cruelty. The bitter, life-threatening cold of a Colorado winter and the blistering heat of the summer sun make survival on the streets an increasingly perilous battle. Deeper still is the poison of stigma, the pervasive narrative that portrays the unhoused as a burden to be managed, rather than as members of our community who are suffering. This stigma infects our politics, chills charitable giving, and silences those who desperately need to ask for help. The future of Colorado's homelessness crisis ultimately rests on our answer to a single defining question. Are we, as a society, willing to build a more just and equitable system? A system that treats housing not as a commodity, but as a fundamental human right. A system designed for inclusion, not exclusion. A system that builds people up from their foundations instead of just patching the cracks. The path forward is not simple. It is not swift. But our future begins with the courage to imagine it. Homelessness is not just an urban problem. It is not a distant headline or a sad story you scroll past. Ultimately, how a society treats its most vulnerable is not just a policy debate. It's a moral compass. Here in Colorado, a state defined by its breathtaking natural beauty, its innovative people, and its progressive soul, we are at a crossroads. Will we continue to look away, reducing human beings to cold statistics? Or will we finally choose to see our neighbors who have lost their way? They are not asking for our pity. They are asking for our empathy and for our action. For every person watching this, our call to you is simple. Listen to their stories, believe in their humanity, and support the work being done. And support doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can be a donation to a local shelter. It can be an email to your elected officials. It can be challenging the stigma you hear at the dinner table or in the break room. Or it can be as simple as a warm smile and a hello to the person you pass on the street. Because true, lasting change is always built from countless small acts of courage and compassion. So that maybe, just maybe, we can build a future where the biting cold of a Colorado night is never again spent without the simple, profound dignity of a roof overhead.